Good morning, everyone. This is August 4th, 2024, and I'm posting these videos as therapy for the trauma of watching my little brother, Paul Kierans, be killed by Burnaby Hospital. So I was in a dispute with my brother's group home, L'Arche, L'Arche, when I discovered that on February 1 of 2021, they had created a secret representation agreement appointing my 81-year-old nun sister 4,000 kilometers away, with whom Paul has never lived, as his representative for the purposes of giving the COVID-19 shot. And they ordered, when I complained about this, they ordered her to terminate his visits with me. And I did everything I could think of to try and reinstate the visits. I went to the Supreme Court of Canada twice, and I was not successful. So we were apart. We were allowed a 10-minute phone call once a week. And that in his last phone call with me on April 12th of 2024, Paul said to me, "Kathleen, take me to a movie." I remember feeling guilty because I was at a McDonald's when I was talking to him. I couldn't hear him. And rather than stretching out the call as long as I could to 12 or 13 minutes, I cut it short at 9 minutes. And that was the last time that I spoke to him on the phone. So apparently on April 13th, Paul had a stroke, and I wasn't informed till 2 days later when my elderly nun sister was able to fly in from 4,000 kilometers away in North Bay, Ontario. But what I'm trying to convey here in these posts is the trauma of watching my sister kill my little brother. And when I say kill, I mean kill dead. He was recovering, as the vast majority of stroke patients do. He wanted to live. When I first saw him, I was allowed a 10-minute visit once per day at the hospital, although I sat in the hospital for 10 to 12 hours every day that he was there. So he was admitted on April 13th, and he died on April 23rd. In the first visit, I said, "Paul, it's Kathleen." And at that point, we hadn't seen each other for 588 days. And his eyes were closed, but he squeezed my hand so tight, like a steel vice. I was only allowed 10 minutes, and the charge nurse supervised my visits. The next day, I brought in, asked to meet with a social worker, and I had paid for 2 expert reports from 2 psychiatrists saying that there were no concerns about my visits with Paul, and that I should be able to visit with him in an unrestricted way, even at my home, unsupervised. But they didn't care about that. Paul, so the first visit, Paul, his eyes were closed and he seemed unconscious, but as I said, when I said my name, he squeezed my hand and wouldn't let go. The second visit, I brought this book. This great big book about Hollywood superstars and old Hollywood. And Paul grabbed the book from my hand with his one good hand, so his right side appeared to be less affected by the stroke, and his right eye was focusing perfectly. He grabbed the book from my hand and started turning the pages perfectly, and I was shocked, and I couldn't believe it was such an improvement from the day before. And I was so excited, and I came back. When I came home, I posted a message here on Facebook about the fact that he'd grabbed the book from my hands. So the following day, I get like a 12-page affidavit from my evil nun sister. She's truly an evil person, an evil person. But anyway, so she takes the time to go to her lawyer's office. She hired 2 law firms, one in Ottawa, one in Vancouver. I estimate she spent about $350,000 on legal fees, fighting to have control over my brother. And you say, well, God, who would spend that much money? She must really love him. No, it's all tax deductible for her because she's a member of a religious community that has tax-exempt status, the Sisters of St. Joseph of Sault Ste. Marie. But anyways, so Paul had grabbed, on the second visit, Paul had grabbed the book from my hands and turned the pages. And I just posted a little note here on Facebook. So I got an affidavit from my sister saying that, no, he didn't sit up and he didn't post, because I knew she wanted to kill him. I know her. And when she flies into town, the person's got about 10 days to live. She did this with my father. She did it with my mother. And she fancies herself an angel of death. And how could he recover? Because she couldn't stick around. She had to get back to her convent on Lake Nipissing in North Bay, Ontario. Anyway, so I get an affidavit from her saying, no, he didn't sit up. And I brought an application to court to try and extend my visits with him. And we didn't have enough time before the judge. But when I got back to the hospital from court, the evil nun said to me without looking me in the eye, she was running around, and I could see it. She was running around. She had moved him to the palliative care ward from the normal ward, where she could be in a large room with a door that closed, and she had her own bed in the room. There were no other patients, and the nurses and medical staff couldn't see what she was doing in there. It had an ante-room with a curtain that you could draw across it. So she could have, who knows what she was doing in there to him. So when I got back from court, I could see that he was dead. His hand, he didn't squeeze my hand. He was completely unresponsive. His eyes were wide open and staring at the ceiling. The ventilator was removed. He had been wearing a ventilator up to that point. The catheter was removed. And I believe what she did was she instructed the doctor to kill him. She would have said something like, oh, he's struggling. He seems to be in pain. So Paul was struggling to recover. Paul wanted to live. And she didn't want him to live. He had to die, and he had a very short window within which to die, because she knew that there was an investigation of this representation agreement, and I had alleged that it was a forgery. She didn't want him to be around so that anyone could get an authentic signature from him or interview him and see how incapable he was, and that he was not capable of appointing a representative. But the point I've been trying to convey to you guys, and really you are my therapists, is the pain of the helplessness. Here was my person, my friend of 65 years that I had seen brought home from the hospital, that I had cared for at my home 1 or 2 weekends a month, that I'd taken to Newfoundland twice, that I'd taken to Seattle, for, whom I had, we had our own private jokes. He would tease me. He was just a wonderful friend and companion. I was always trying to think of things like the peony or the pumpkin farm, or places that we could go and like 2 retired people and do fun things. And I was watching him being killed. I've watched people die. I saw my mother die. and over several months. And I know what it's like. My brother, I had another brother who committed suicide. My father died. I've watched lots of, I've had lots of people die, but it's different than watching somebody be killed before your very eyes. I knew what she was doing. And I could see the look in the doctor's eye. There's some people that like killing people. They're kind of ineffective. He was in dirty scrubs. He was kind of disgusting looking. He was a slimy little guy. And I've made a complaint to the College of Physicians and Surgeons. I've complained to the coroner. And there's an investigation going on. But what I wanted to convey to you with this, in Canada now, they're having hearings before Parliament about killing disabled children. Canada has sunk so low. Wake up. Wake up. I was watching the most precious person in my world be killed by medical staff before my very eyes. And this is something that was unthinkable until the current administration in Canada. To take our most vulnerable people. He was struggling. He was recovering. He grabbed that book out of my hands. I've got eyes to see. I was trained as a psychologist working. I was one of a handful of people in BC that was trained to assess and to work with profoundly disabled adults before I went into law. And what I'm trying to convey in this video is the utter helplessness that I felt as I was watching my brother struggling to live and the people around him killing him. My sister, the doctor, the staff, killing him because it was expedient to do so. But they're going to pay. This is not going away at all. They think they got away with murder. They think they got away with killing him, but they're not going to. But it's what I want you to see, and what I'm trying to convey to my Facebook friends and anybody who watches this, is that this is the pain that these policies engender. It's not just faceless, disabled people somewhere else that you don't see. Paul was my person. He was my loved one. I cared about what happened to him. I understood him and he understood me. We were friends. And I watched medical staff kill him against his wishes before my very eyes. The system has failed him and me in the most profound way. And that's why I'm posting these videos every day. And I send them to the Premier David Eby every day. This is not okay. This is the opposite of okay. And I was helpless. It's the most horrible feeling you can imagine. And it's wrong. It's morally wrong. Canada's gone down a very dark, dark, evil path. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Paul, I spent my whole life protecting you from people that tried to do you harm, but in the end, I wasn't successful. But I'm going to try and make it so that no one else can ever hurt you the way that the government of BC hurt you, and my sister, the nun, the evil nun, hurt you. Take care, everybody, and have a wonderful BC Day weekend.